Thomas, Chief Librarian of the Nelson Municipal Library. I'm here tonight on behalf of Project Literacy West Kootenay. This organization has been going on since about last February. We now have a local branch with about 30 active members. We've done some publicity to make local people aware of literacy problems, and we've also made some effort to attract people who might be interested in tutoring. Now we're on sort of the third phase of our project here, which is to attract learners. Part of what we're going to be doing tonight is just that. I'm here to talk to Eva, who is currently upgrading her reading skills at Selkirk College. And we're hoping that by talking to Eva and conveying some of her experiences, that some people will see this interview and contact us either about themselves or about friends or relatives who have reading problems. This is the Year of Literacy, and as a result of that, the library has received a large collection of books on literacy and for people who are learning how to read from the BC Library Association and the provincial government. So for people who are interested in those kind of books, they are there in the library. It's quite a good collection, and some videotapes and some audio tapes as well. Well, we'll get on with the interview now. As I mentioned, you are going to Selkirk College right now, upgrading your reading skills. What made you realize you had a reading problem?
Well, I don't even think that I thought I had a reading problem until after I went back to school. I could read enough to get by, so I never really worried about it. Once you go back to school, there's lots of words that you don't understand, so that's when I recognized the problem. I didn't think that I had a problem before.
What grade level were you reading at when you went back to school?
I had different levels because they have different ways of testing you, but the lowest grade was 4.5.
Mm-hmm. And what grade level are you at now?
Right now I'm doing grade 11.
And how long did it take you to get there?
I've gone to school for 17 months.
So you're at a grade 11 in everything, or in your reading alone?
Grade 11 in everything. I do algebra, biology. Right now I'm doing lots of essays.
So you're writing well and you're reading well and you feel pretty good about what you're doing?
Yeah, I do.
Was it difficult to go back to school?
Yes. I think that was probably one of the hardest decisions that I ever made, and it took me a long, long time to get to that. But I just finally came to the realization where either I had to live on welfare the rest of my life or go back to school and get an education. And I've got 2 boys, and so it's a good example to go back to school. It's been hard, but it's worthwhile.
Do you think, for most people who are learning how to read, I know that you've met other people in similar situations or somewhat different situations, does it take about that length of time to make that much progress when you're an adult learning how to read?
Yeah, I'm what they classify as an average learner. And I'm learning at, I don't know how they would grade whether you're average or below average, but I've learned at an average rate from where I've started off. Everybody learns in different ways and everybody starts at different levels. I attended a workshop. There was 210 people there that were learners. It was a conference just for learners. And everyone had different stories and different levels where they started at. So
you have been involved in other literacy activities and met other people in those circumstances?
Yeah, I've been allowed through Selkirk College to go to one of the founding meetings that they had for literacy. And I also attended the workshop in Pearson's College and it was just learners, and that was a great workshop.
Did you find there were other people with similar experiences to yourself, or did you find they were quite different?
Yeah, every story we heard, everybody had a different story to tell, but you still found parts of yourself in those stories. But I think the good thing about that workshop is that it made you feel that you weren't alone, and that somebody out there really understood how, because when you're a learner you feel that doors are being slammed in your face all the time, and it was a nice feeling, like we all got together and we all realized that you know, we're making it. We're the ones that made the choice to go back and do something. But we also know there's thousands of people out there that can't read.
Yes, by the last statistic I had, there was about 17% of people in BC, adults in BC, who either can't read or can't read well. I guess that's actually functionally illiterate, whatever that means.
Yeah,
but there's supposedly about 25% in this area, which is fairly high.
I think probably too, if people were honest, and I believe that the statistics would be higher. Lots of times they run testing on, you know, if you can read this, or if you can't read this, phone this number. Well, obviously, if you can't read it, you're not going to know to phone the number. They do some weird testing. I think that the problem is probably higher than what. And people that can't read have gone all their lives not admitting that they can. And
That's right.
so they're not going to come right out in the open and answer a questionnaire. Well, no, you know.
Did you have ways of getting around it when there were things that you couldn't read? I've heard of people with all kinds of wonderful ways of getting around the fact that they can't.
I could read basic type reading. So if there was words, if I was reading something and there was words I didn't understand, all I did was skip over them and then try and pick up what I did read, what they were talking about. But now that I'm into the intermediate level of school, there's lots of words that I can't skip over. I have to look those words up and figure out what they are.
So it's really pushing you and challenging you.
In a conversation, if I didn't understand what people were talking about, if people laughed, I laughed. If people smiled, I smiled and walked away pretending I knew everything they said.
Well, I would think that would be very heartening that it's only taken you 17 months to go 7 grades, and that's a fairly average speed. I would think for the average learner out there, that would be very heartening and hopeful for them, knowing that they can go that fast, because that does seem fairly fast to me.
Yeah, I would think, you know, like I said, everybody learns at different levels. Mm-hmm. And when I started, I did know the basics. So I guess I had kind of a jump start to what other people would. Yeah. But I think they classify a lot of people can't read if they don't have grade 10 or something. I think it's a grade 10 level.
So that would make you functionally illiterate if you didn't have a grade 10?
Yeah. So
I didn't realize it was that high.
Yeah, I'm sure it's... I could be wrong, but I think that's what they classify it at.
There's some very common misconceptions about people who can't read. One of them, of course, is that people are stupid because they can't read. And I certainly know that isn't true in your case, since you've done so very well in school. The other obvious myth is that it's all the fault of the schools. No, that may or may not be true. So those are the two that I've heard come up most frequently, is that people just can't read, or that they have a learning disability. That's the third, perhaps. What was it in your case?
I think a lot of it had to do with the school system. One year I had an extremely cruel teacher, and I just got to the point where, fine, you could drop off the face of the earth and I'm not going to sit in here and learn anything because I don't want to. I was extremely shy when I started school. They had set up a special learning class when I hit grade 3 because there were so many of us behind. I believe there was like 30 of us in that class. And we all started to finally pick up. But this budget came out, and of course the class was cut the next year, and we were put into a class of around 40 students, you know. And so as the years went on, the further behind that we got.
So you just sort of got lost in the system?
Lost in the system. I got burnt seriously when I was in grade 5, and I think I attended school maybe 4 months out of that year, and I still passed to grade 6. By the time I hit grade 8, I couldn't do grade 4 and do it well. So and changing from an elementary school to a high school is a big change in itself. Never mind if you can't make it in school. So I tended to clown around a lot and get myself into trouble and things like that, and I just became a nuisance. And I just eventually quit, just for the fact that I couldn't handle it.
Do you think that's a fairly common experience from the other learners that you've met, that they somehow got lost in the system, they had a bad year or a bad couple of years and just kept getting pushed along in the school system but never really learned how to read?
That's just about one of the biggest complaints that people have that have, you know, that have gone to school. That they feel that the system has failed them somehow.
So a special sort of remedial reading program or something of that nature would have helped you a great deal
Yeah.
at that time?
When we had this special class, of course, all the kids on the playground are cruel, and well,
There was a
they
stigma about
immediately,
being there, yeah.
and but as an adult, I look back and I think that's probably the only year that I actually did learn something, and we had a really great understanding teacher, and she was good.
Was there sort of personalized attention to you as well? I mean, was it more designed to your particular needs and your particular way of
Yeah,
learning?
they basically, I think what they did is they went back to the basics of learning, and because somewhere along the line that's what we had missed to start with.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. Yeah, I think they're a good idea.
Well, I think there's probably a bit more of that happening now, and I hope it continues. Whenever a recession comes around, those, quote, frills are the first things to go. Just to wrap up here, I'd like to ask you what your future goals are. You're now at grade 11. Are you going to continue with school?
Yeah,
Get your
I'm
degree?
trying to finish my algebra and get some chemistry in, and just about finish my grade 11 English, so I have to start grade 12, which is all literature. And so that ought to be fun reading all the novels. But I'm going to take RN, and hopefully that I can get in.
Registered nurses
Registered
program.
nurses.
That's a very difficult program. That's
So
very
hopefully,
brave of you.
hopefully I'll be ready in September of '91. So I hope so.
Great.
Yeah, that's my
Sounds
goal.
like a real success story. I hope you make it.
Yeah, I started out very low on the ladder, and I thought I'd be a long term. Then, well, maybe I'd be just a practical nurse, and then I decided if I'm going to do it right.
You
So,
might as well.
yeah.
Absolutely. And
So
you've obviously
that's
done well so far, so I think you
what
can.
I'm doing.
Well, thank you, Eva. For the listeners out there, if you want to contact the local branch, the Nelson Salmo branch of the Project Literacy West Kootenay, you can call the library at 352-6333. That's 352-6333. Thank you.